Middlesbrough Football Club is a professional association football club based in Middlesbrough, North Yorkshire, England. Formed in 1876, they have played at the Riverside Stadium since 1995, the second ground since turning professional in 1889. They played at Ayresome Park for 92 years, from 1903 to 1995. They were one of the founding members of the Premier League in 1992. The club's main rivals are Sunderland and Newcastle United. There is also a rivalry with fellow Yorkshire club Leeds United. The club's highest league finish to date was third in the 1913-14 season, and they have only spent 2 seasons outside of the Football League's top 2 divisions. The club came close to folding in 1986 after experiencing severe financial difficulties before it was saved by a consortium led by then board member and later chairman Steve Gibson. Middlesbrough were deducted 3 points for failing to fulfill a fixture against Blackburn Rovers in the 1996-97 Premier League season and subsequently relegated. They were promoted the following season and spent 11 seasons in the top division before being relegated again in 2009. Middlesbrough won the League Cup in 2004, the club's first and only major trophy. They reached the 2006 UEFA Cup final, but were beaten by Spanish side Sevilla. After 7 years in the Championship, Middlesbrough secured promotion to the Premier League in 2016 after finishing in second place. The club's traditional kit is red with white detailing. The various crests throughout the club's history, the most recent of which was adopted in 2007, incorporate a lion rampant history. They won the FA Amateur Cup in 1895 and again in 1898. The club turned professional in 1889, but reverted to amateur status in 1892. They turned professional permanently in 1899. After 3 seasons, they won promotion to the First Division, where they would remain for the next 22 years. In 1903, the club moved to Ayresome Park, the home for the next 92 years. In 1905, the club sanctioned the transfer of Alf Common for £1,000, a record fee. Over the next few years, the form fluctuated greatly, rising to 6th in 1907-08 before dropping to 17th 2 seasons later. The club rose to the highest league finish to date, 3rd in 1913-14. World War I soon intervened and football was suspended. Before league football resumed, Middlesbrough won the Northern Victory League, but the team were unable to maintain the previous form and finished the 1919-20 season in mid-table. They remained in the First Division for the next few seasons but were relegated in 1923-24 after finishing bottom, 10 points adrift of the nearest rivals. 3 seasons later, they won the Division 2 title. During that season, debutant George Camsell, who had signed from 3rd Division North side Durham City the previous season, finished with a record 59 league goals, which included 9 hat-tricks. He would continue as top scorer for each of the next 10 seasons, but tenure back in the top flight lasted only 1 season, and the club were relegated. They were promoted at the first attempt in 1928-29, winning another second division title. The club remained in the First Division until 1954. The decade before the war saw the emergence of Wilf Mannion and George Hardwick, both of whom would go on to become England internationals in the years ahead. Middlesbrough climbed to fourth in the last full season before World War II and were expected to challenge for the title next season, but the war intervened. After the war, the club was unable to recover the form of the previous seasons and hovered around mid-table and exited in the early rounds of the FA Cup. Soon afterwards, the team began to falter, eventually suffering relegation in 1953-54. This was the start of a 20-year spell outside the top division, but saw the emergence of one of the club's top goal scorers, Brian Clough, who scored 204 goals in 222 games before he left for Sunderland. Over that period, Middlesbrough maintained reasonable progress in the second division but were never serious contenders for promotion. After a fourth-place finish in 1962-63, the club endured a steady decline and were relegated to the third division for the first time in their history in 1966. New manager Stan Anderson returned the club to the second flight at the first attempt. Middlesbrough would not finish below ninth during the next 8 seasons. By 1974, Jack Charlton had taken over as manager and guided the team back to the top flight. They ensured promotion as early as the 23rd of March, and with 8 games of the season left, they became runaway champions, finishing with a record 65 points. Middlesbrough won the first silverware as a professional side in the 1975-76 season, lifting the Anglo-Scottish Cup in its inaugural season after a 2-legged final win over Fulham. The club experienced severe financial difficulties during the mid-1980s. Middlesbrough were dropping down the table and finished 19th in the 1984-85 season. In April 1986, the club had to borrow £30,000 from the Professional Footballers Association to pay wages. The final game of the season saw Middlesbrough relegated to the third division again. That summer, the club called in the provisional liquidator and shortly afterwards, the club was wound up and the gates to Ayresome Park were padlocked. Without the £350,000 capital required for Football League registration, a new rule, it seemed inevitable that the club would fold permanently. Steve Gibson, however, a member of the board at the time, brought together a consortium, and with 10 minutes to spare before the deadline they completed the registration with the Football League for the 1986-87 season. Following the registration came both a change of club crest and a change of the official company name to Middlesbrough Football and Athletic Club Limited. Over the next 2 seasons, Middlesbrough gained successive promotions into Division 2 and then into Division 1. The next season, however, they came straight back down to Division 2, and with it came the then British transfer record move of Gary Pallister to Manchester United for £2.3 million. Despite constant promotion and relegation, Middlesbrough were founding members of the FA Premier League for the 1992-93 season. Player-manager Brian Robson, from Manchester United, took charge in 1994 and Middlesbrough were brought back into national attention, following promotion to the Premier League and high-profile purchases like diminutive Brazilian Juninho. Many considered Middlesbrough were on the rise. A difficult 1996-97 season, however, was compounded by a deduction of 3 points imposed just after Christmas as punishment for the club's failure to fulfill a fixture against Blackburn Rovers, which ultimately resulted in relegation. Without the points deduction, the club would have had enough points to avoid the drop. At the same time, the club managed to reach both the League and FA Cup finals for the first time, but lost out in both. Despite being in the second tier, they were again runners-up in the League Cup final the next year. Despite losing high-profile players Fabrizio Ravanelli and Juninho due to relegation, Middlesbrough were promoted back to the Premier League at the first attempt. In 1998, the following season saw them settle well and they enjoyed a 12-game unbeaten run midway through 1998-99, including a 3-2 win at Old Trafford in January, during which they took a 3-0 lead. It was Manchester United's only home defeat during their treble-winning season. Middlesbrough continued to stay secure in mid-table the following season, thanks mainly to the goals of Hamilton Ricard and the signings of big-name players such as Paul Ince and Christian Ziege. In 2001, they had a brief relegation scare that was solved with the arrival of Terry Venables as co-manager, and a 3-0 win away at Arsenal in April was the team's best result. The trend of buying European stars continued with the acquisitions of Christian Karembeu and Alan Boksic. Brian Robson left the club before the start of 2001-02 season, having served as manager for 7 years, and was replaced by Manchester United assistant coach Steve McClaren. The following season saw Premier League security maintained as Middlesbrough slowly improved and were seen as a tough side to beat when playing at the Riverside Stadium. During McClaren's reign, Middlesbrough achieved the highest Premier League placing, finishing 7th in 2004-05. The 2003-04 season was the most successful in the club's history as they finally won a major trophy after beating Bolton Wanderers 2-1 in the League Cup final under Steve McClaren. This success also ensured that Middlesbrough would qualify for Europe, the UEFA Cup, for the first time, ultimately reaching the last 16 in the competition. UEFA Cup qualification was achieved for the second consecutive year after a dramatic 1-1 away draw with Manchester City thanks to a late penalty save from Mark Schwarzer in the final game of the season. Middlesbrough reached the 2006 UEFA Cup final in Eindhoven, following 2 comebacks from 3-0 down in the rounds preceding it, but lost 4-0 to Sevilla. Following the cup final, McClaren left to manage the England national team, and captain Gareth Southgate took over. Despite not having the coaching qualifications, he was allowed to continue after receiving special dispensation. During the 2007-08 season, Southgate broke Middlesbrough's record transfer fee, paying £13.6 million for Brazilian international striker Afonso Alves. Southgate's first 2 seasons saw the club finish in 12th and 13th places. He oversaw the club reaching the quarter-finals of the FA Cup for 3 seasons, but the club was relegated to the Championship on the last day of the 2008-09 season. Southgate was sacked in October 2009 and replaced by Gordon Strachan. At the time of Southgate's dismissal, Borough were 4th in the Championship and only 1 point away from the automatic promotion spot. But the form under Strachan was significantly worse and they finished mid-table. Despite starting the 2010-11 campaign as promotion favourites, the club endured a disappointing start to the season, securing only 1 point in 5 away games, having slipped to 20th in the Championship following a home defeat to rivals Leeds United. Strachan resigned on the 18th of October. A week later, Tony Mowbray was confirmed as the new manager. Having staved off the threat of relegation, Mowbray successfully transformed Borough's fortunes, eventually guiding them to a top-half finish. Borough ended the season top of the form table after 4 consecutive league wins, the first such run since 1998. Despite a magnificent first half of the season, however, Boro failed to capitalise and eventually finished 7th in the league, missing out on the playoffs by 5 points and 1 position. Following a poor run of form of 2 wins in 12 games in the 2013-14 campaign, on the 21st of October 2013, nearly 3 years after his arrival, Tony Mowbray left the club with immediate effect. Aitor Karanka, a former Spanish defender and assistant coach at Real Madrid to José Mourinho, became the new Middlesbrough manager on the 13th of November 2013, signing a 2-year contract. He became the first non-British manager at the club, which finished the season 12th in the final league standings. In his first full season in charge, Middlesbrough finished 4th and thus qualified for the 2015 Football League playoffs. After seeing off Brentford 5-1 on aggregate in the semi-final, the club lost 0-2 to Norwich City at Wembley Stadium in the final. Under Karanka's tutelage, Patrick Bamford, on loan from Chelsea, won the Championship Player of the Year award for 2014-15. The next season, Middlesbrough were promoted back to the Premier League after finishing second in the Championship in 2015-16, drawing 1-1 with Brighton and Hove Albion on the final day of the season. Overall seasons spent at level 1 of the Football League system, 60. Seasons spent at level 2 of the Football League system, 44. Seasons spent at level 3 of the Football League system, 2. Seasons spent at level 4 of the Football League system, 0. As of season 2015-16. Colours and crest. Middlesbrough's original home kit upon election to the Football League in 1899 was a white home shirt with blue shorts, and they did not adopt their colours of red and white until later that season. Previous kits included a white shirt with a blue and white polka-dotted collar from around 1889. The Middlesbrough kit has remained broadly the same over the years, with a red shirt and socks and either red or white shorts. The distinctive broad white stripe across the chest was introduced by Jack Charlton in 1973 and brought back for a one-off in 1997-98 and then again for the 2001 and 2004-05 seasons due to popular demand. The club subsequently announced in December 2007 that the club would allow the fans to decide via an online and text vote whether the white band should return for the following season. On the 8th of January 2008, the club announced that the white band was to return, with 77.4% of voters voting in its favour, with the fans to choose the final shirt design from a selection of 3 designs, of which the winner was announced on the 7th of May 2008. The Middlesbrough crest has gone through 4 changes since the formation of the club. Initially, the badge was simply the town of Middlesbrough's crest with a red line instead of a blue line in order to fit in with the club's colours. Following the adoption of the white band on the shirts in 1973, only the red line remained with the letters M.F.C. underneath in red. This was further adapted following the reformation of the club in 1986 to a circular crest with the lion in the middle and the words Middlesbrough Football Club 1986 around the circle in order to reflect this new era. In 2007, Middlesbrough changed the crest again, this time with the lion inside a shield and the words Middlesbrough Football Club 1876 underneath. The club stated that this was to reflect the club's long history and not just the post-liquidation status. Kit information. Stadium. After formation in 1876, and with the club still amateurs, Middlesbrough's first 2 years of football were played at Albert Park in Middlesbrough. After seeing the damage being caused by players and supporters, the park committee ordered the club to find an alternate venue. The club moved to Brecon Hill, behind the former Middlesbrough College Longlands site, after agreeing to rent the land from its owner. However, 2 years later, in 1880, the owner increased the rent and the club decided to move. They moved into the Linthorpe Road ground in 1882, home at the time of Middlesbrough Cricket Club. The cricket club departed in 1893–94 to move to the Brecon Hill field, and Middlesbrough Football Club became sole users of the ground. With the club's growing size and entry to the Football League, they had to move to a new ground in 1903, Ayresome Park. It was designed by Archibald Leach and would be the club's home for the next 92 years. Following the Taylor Report in 1990, the ground either needed modernising or the club needed a new stadium. The club decided on the latter, and moved out at the end of the 1994–95 season. It was used as a training ground during 1995–96, before it was demolished in 1997 and a housing estate built in its place. The club now trains at a £7 million complex at Rockcliffe Park in Herworth, on the outskirts of Darlington. The Riverside Stadium, named by the supporters of the club after a vote, became the club's home in 1995. It was the first stadium to be built in line with the Taylor Report's recommendations on all-seater stadia for clubs in the top 2 divisions of the English Football League system. It was originally a 30,000-seater stadium, constructed at a cost of £16 million, before it was expanded in 1998 to a capacity of 35,100 for an extra £5 million. Since then, several reorganisations of the Riverside Stadium have taken place. At the start of the 2013-14 season, away fans were moved from behind the goal in the south stand to the southeast corner, while home fans are now situated behind both goals to help create a better atmosphere inside the stadium. A giant TV screen was also installed at the back of the southeast corner, replacing the older-style scoreboards attached to the north and south stand roofs. For the start of the 2016-17 season, the club had to improve the stadium's broadcasting facilities and floodlighting in order to meet current Premier League requirements. As a result of these changes, the current stadium capacity has been reduced to 33,746. The club also took the opportunity to move the main camera gantry to the back of the east stand, where it will now face the main west stand. Average attendances at Middlesbrough matches have fluctuated over the past several years, moving from a 2004-05 high average of 32,012 to a low of 26,092 in 2006-07, then up again to 28,428 in 2008-09. Following relegation to the Championship, attendances dipped, although the crowd of 23,451 which saw Middlesbrough's first Championship game against Sheffield United represents far higher gates than is usual for the division, and indeed larger than those of some Premier League clubs. The club attracted an average of 24,627 for their 2015-16 promotion season from the Championship to the Premier League. Supporters Traditionally, supporters come from Middlesbrough itself and towns in the immediate area. Middlesbrough have one of the highest proportions in Britain of locally born season ticket holders at 80%, and one of the highest proportions of female fans at 20%. A survey at the start of the 2007-08 season found Middlesbrough supporters were the seventh loudest set of fans in the Premier League. Middlesbrough Official Supporters Club, which features its own team in the local football league, has links with supporters clubs across the globe. The largest supporters clubs include the Official Supporters Club, the Middlesbrough Disabled Supporters Association, Yarm Reds, Red Faction, and Middlesbrough Supporters South. Middlesbrough supporters' main rivals are Sunderland, Newcastle United, and Leeds United, a fact confirmed by Planet Football.com's 2004 survey. Carlisle United see Middlesbrough as the biggest rivals, but Middlesbrough supporters have not reciprocated, as they do not see Carlisle as a top 3 rival. The nickname Smoggies was first used as a derogatory term by opposing supporters. It relates to the industrial air pollution that used to hang over the town, but it was later used by Middlesbrough fans in a somewhat self-deprecating manner before finally being adopted as a badge of pride by supporters of the club. An example of this can be seen on the banners carried to away games stating "Smoggies on tour." Middlesbrough fans were notably praised by UEFA Chief Executive Lars-Christer Olsen after the behaviour during the 2005-06 UEFA Cup campaign. He commended that, "You have the satisfaction of knowing that, although your team did not win the game, your supporters present in Eindhoven proved to the world that football fans can turn a match into a friendly, violence-free celebration." Middlesbrough fans had also been praised by Cleveland police for the behaviour in previous rounds, particularly in the light of aggravation prior to and during the match at Roma. Media relations. Middlesbrough were the first football club in the world to launch its own TV channel, Boro TV. The first broadcasts were tied to the club's first ever major cup final appearance in 1997, a full year ahead of Manchester United's MUTV, which still claims to be the first in the world. The channel was the brainchild of then NTL marketing director Peter Wilkow. The program became synonymous with former Middlesbrough star Bernie Slaven and radio commentator Alistair Brownlee, who proved to be as popular on TV as they were on radio. Its programs were not live initially but were pre-recorded and hosted by local radio, TV broadcaster and AMP Boro fan, Dave Roberts. Boro TV went on to claim another first when in August 2001 it became the first English football club to broadcast time-delayed full match footage of their league games on their own channel. Boro TV ran through NTL cable television until July 2005. The club now show match highlights through a subscription-based scheme on their official website. Middlesbrough's official matchday program, Red Square, was Programme Monthly's 2006-07 Programme of the Year. There are numerous other fanzines available, most notably Fly Me to the Moon, formed in September 1988 following Bruce Rioch's quote to Tony Mowbray, stating, "If I had to go to the moon I'd want him by my side." Community. Middlesbrough Football Club in the community was founded in 1995 by club chairman Steve Gibson and is one of the largest community-based football schemes in the United Kingdom. It is run separately from the football club but receives support from both the club in terms of providing players, staff, stadium facilities and PR in the matchday program and other publications, as well as support from other local organizations. Since 2002, the club and FC FDIC have also run the Middlesbrough Enterprise Academy, a scheme which helps local children improve their entrepreneurial skills and increase their awareness of business planning and finance. In March 2008, plans were announced by the Premier League to roll out the scheme nationally amongst all Premier League clubs. It was announced in December 2007 that Middlesbrough Football Club had carried out more community work during 2006-07 than any other Premier League club, rising from second place the previous year, with the club making 318 appearances, almost twice the Premier League average of 162. They were in the top 2 for community appearances again in 2007-08, with 374, a 17% increase on the previous season. Middlesbrough's mascot is Rory the Lion. The club runs Rory's Children's Charity Fund, which purchases items for local children's charities. In 2009, steel producer Chorus Group announced the possibility that it would mothball its Teesside plant, with up to 4,000 employees and contractors facing redundancy, after a consortium of steel magnates walked away from a 10-year deal. Middlesbrough Football Club helped with the Save Our Steel campaign by hosting dozens of steel workers and their families as they marched around the ground, promoted the campaign via the stadium's PA system, scoreboards and in-match-day programs, while players wore T-shirts during warm-ups promoting the campaign. Chairman Steve Gibson said, "Middlesbrough Football Club exists for the community, for the people of Teesside, and the closure of the steel plants threatens to rip the heart out of our community. We cannot stand by and allow that to happen. We want the steel workers and the families to know that we are behind them and will help the campaign in any way we can. We like to think that the football club is the flagship of Teesside. Well, this is our town and these are our people and we have to do what we can to help them." Honours. Domestic League Division 2, Division 1, Championship. Winners, Playoff winners, 1987-88. Division 3, Division 2, Football League 1. Runners-up, 1966-67, 1986-87. Northern League. Winners, 1893-94, 1894-95, 1896-97. Cup League Cup. Winners, 2003-04, FA Cup. Runners-up, 1996-97, FA Amateur Cup. Winners, 1895-1898 Full Members Cup. Runners-up, 1989-90 FA Youth Cup. Winners, 2004 International UEFA Cup. Runners-up, 2005-06 Anglo-Scottish Cup. Winners, 1976 Kirin Cup. Winners, 1980 Club Staff. As of the 20th of July 2016. Players. Current squad. Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Out on loan. Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality.